The lights were bright, the pressure was enormous, and the stage could not have been bigger. At Ellis Park, the opening chapter of rugby's greatest rivalry delivered a result few South African supporters wanted to see, as the All Blacks produced a powerful and disciplined performance to defeat the Springboks 33-16. It was more than just a win for New Zealand. It was a statement. For South Africa, meanwhile, the defeat exposed areas that will need urgent attention before the next battle. And when the dust settled, two All Black stars stood above the rest, showing exactly why they are being discussed among the best players in the world. At the center of the victory was Will Jordan, a player who seems capable of turning almost any moment into something special. Jordan crossed the line twice, adding to his impressive try-scoring record, but his biggest contribution was not simply his finishing. He showed an incredible willingness to work in the hard areas of the game, including a magnificent breakdown turnover that perfectly captured his all-round performance. Against a physical Springbok side, Jordan did not disappear when the game became messy. He stepped forward. That is what separates dangerous attackers from complete players, and once again, Will Jordan looked like a player operating at the highest level of world rugby. Then came Jordie Barrett, and if Jordan was the spark, Barrett was the control tower. His performance was outstanding on both sides of the ball. Defensively, he repeatedly stood between the Springboks and scoring opportunities, producing crucial interventions when the pressure was at its highest. He also earned 5 turnovers, an extraordinary contribution from a player who was equally influential in attack. With the ball in hand, Jordie Barrett made intelligent decisions, created opportunities, and rarely looked rushed. Against one of the most powerful teams in international rugby, he looked calm, composed, and remarkably effective. Together, Will Jordan and Jordie Barrett offered a glimpse of what makes the All Blacks so dangerous when everything clicks. But the victory was not built only on superstar performances. Fabian Holland also deserves enormous credit. Returning from injury and playing only his 3rd match back, Holland looked remarkably sharp. His crucial try came after he charged down Grant Williams, turning pressure into points at exactly the right moment. He also contributed strongly at line-out time, particularly after Josh Lord was forced from the contest. There were moments in the second half when Holland appeared less comfortable, but overall, his performance was another major positive for New Zealand. Then came George Bower, whose selection had raised plenty of questions before kickoff. Some wondered whether his presence might give the Springboks an opportunity to dominate the scrum. Instead, the opposite happened. When Ethan de Groot left the field following a head injury, Bower was thrown into the battle, and the Crusaders' prop responded with a determined performance. He battled through difficult moments, held his ground, and helped the All Blacks maintain their set-piece challenge. It was exactly the kind of contribution coaches dream about from a player coming off the bench. Credit must also go to Dave Rennie, whose major decisions ultimately paid off. The selections of Fabian Holland and George Bower proved important, while the decision to trust Patrick Tuipulotu also delivered dividends. Tuipulotu may not have been the obvious choice before the match, but his performance in the second row was strong enough to make a serious argument for him keeping his place. On the other side, the Springboks did have their own winners, even in defeat. Wilco Louw was one of the clearest examples. Selected ahead of Thomas du Toit, Louw gave South Africa a strong platform and repeatedly challenged the All Blacks at scrum time. His battle with Ethan de Groot was particularly impressive, and he earned several penalties that gave the Springboks opportunities to build pressure. The problem was that South Africa struggled to turn those opportunities into enough points. Then there was Jasper Wiese, who showed tremendous power in the carry. Time and again, Wiese pushed through contact, gained valuable ground, and helped his side cross the gain line. But rugby is not won by one area alone, and the Springboks could not consistently turn that physical dominance into attacking rewards. That was perhaps the biggest frustration of the night. The famous South African bomb squad, usually one of the most feared weapons in international rugby, failed to produce the impact expected of it. Instead of overwhelming the All Blacks, the replacement forward struggled to change the momentum. Errors also hurt the Springboks at crucial moments, allowing New Zealand to stay in control and punish mistakes. The final score of 33-16 tells the story clearly, but it does not fully explain the tension and intensity of the contest. The Springboks were never simply beaten by effort. They were beaten by an All Black side that executed its opportunities better, defended with discipline, and produced match-winning performances from key players. For New Zealand, the victory creates belief. For South Africa, it creates questions. And perhaps that is what makes the next meeting so fascinating. The first test has been won, but the rivalry is far from over. The Springboks will know they can improve. They will look at the missed chances, the handling errors, the breakdown battle, and the impact of their replacements. They will know that 33-16 cannot become the pattern. Meanwhile, the All Blacks will arrive at the next contest with something even more dangerous than confidence, belief that their plan can work against the world champions. Jordan has reminded everyone of his extraordinary quality. Jordie Barrett has strengthened his claim as one of the most complete players in the game. Fabian Holland has announced his return with authority, while George Bower has shown that depth can become a weapon when the pressure rises. But the greatest rivalries are never decided after one night. Ellis Park has given New Zealand the first punch. Now the question is how South Africa responds. Because when the Springboks and All Blacks meet again, reputation will mean very little. Past victories will mean very little. The only thing that will matter is who can handle the pressure, who can seize the crucial moments, and who can keep fighting when the game reaches its most demanding stage. The first battle belongs to New Zealand. But the rivalry is only getting the lights were shining over Ellis Park, the crowd was roaring, and rugby's greatest rivalry had once again delivered a night filled with pressure, emotion, physical battles, and unforgettable moments. But when the final whistle sounded, there was no doubt about who had controlled the opening chapter. The All Blacks had defeated the Springboks 33-16, producing a performance that sent a powerful message to the rugby world. For New Zealand, it was a night of confidence and confirmation. For South Africa, it was a night of frustration, missed opportunities, and difficult questions. Yet perhaps the most important part of this result is that the story is nowhere near finished. The opening battle may belong to the All Blacks, but the next chapter could be completely different. From the first whistle, the intensity was obvious. The Springboks wanted to impose their physical game, while the All Blacks looked determined to play with speed, accuracy, and confidence. Every collision carried meaning. Every mistake created danger. Every possession felt like it could change the direction of the match. In a rivalry as famous as this one, there is no room to hide, and both teams quickly discovered that even the smallest error could become a major moment. The biggest winners of the night were undoubtedly the All Blacks, and at the heart of their success was Jordan. Jordan once again showed why he is considered one of the most dangerous attacking players in world rugby. He scored twice, adding more tries to his already impressive international record, but his performance went far beyond finishing opportunities. What made Jordan so impressive was his willingness to contribute everywhere. He was involved in attack, worked hard in defense, and even produced a magnificent breakdown turnover that showed just how complete his game has become. That moment was important because it represented something bigger than a single turnover. It showed that Jordan is no longer simply a player waiting for the perfect attacking opportunity. He is becoming the kind of complete player who can influence a test match in multiple ways. Against the Springboks, that is exactly what a team needs. Then there was Jordie Barrett, and his performance was arguably just as important. Barrett was everywhere. When the Springboks created attacking pressure, he was there to shut it down. When opportunities appeared for the All Blacks, he made intelligent decisions and helped keep the attack moving. His defensive contribution was especially impressive, with crucial interventions preventing South Africa from turning promising situations into points. 5 turnovers added another remarkable layer to his performance. Against a team built around physical pressure, Barrett repeatedly showed that intelligence and timing can be just as important as strength. In attack, he remained composed. He did not force unnecessary plays. He trusted the system, waited for opportunities, and made decisions that kept New Zealand in control. If there was a player who represented balance between attack and defense on the night, it was Jordie Barrett. Together, Jordan and Jordie Barrett demonstrated the quality that makes the All Blacks so dangerous. They did not rely on one single method. They could attack quickly, defend aggressively, compete at the breakdown, and punish mistakes. That variety made life extremely difficult for the Springboks. But the victory was not only about the established stars. Fabian Holland delivered one of the most encouraging performances of the night. This was only his third match after returning from injury, yet there was very little sign of rust. Holland looked comfortable in the physical exchanges and made an enormous contribution around the close-quarter areas. His try came from a brilliant piece of pressure when he charged down Grant Williams, turning a defensive opportunity into a crucial attacking reward. It was the kind of moment that can change a test match. Holland also stepped up in the lineout, particularly after Josh Lord left the field. There were a few moments in the second half when things became more difficult, but overall, his return was a major positive for New Zealand. For a player still rebuilding his rhythm after injury, that performance could be the beginning of something very important. Another unexpected winner was George Bower. Before the match, there had been questions about his selection in the All Blacks squad. Some observers believed his inclusion might give the Springboks a chance to gain even more control in the scrum. Instead, Bower helped prove the doubts wrong. When Ethan de Groot left the field following a head injury, Bower was forced into action, and he responded with determination. The scrum battle was not easy, especially against a powerful South African pack, but Bower fought through it and continued to compete. His performance showed why depth matters at international level. A player does not always have to start to become important. Sometimes, the biggest contribution comes when a teammate goes down and the pressure suddenly increases. Bower answered that challenge. The coaching staff also deserve recognition, particularly Dave Rennie. The decisions made before the match were always going to face intense scrutiny because of the importance of the occasion. But several major calls worked. Fabian Holland made a significant impact. George Bower proved useful when needed. Patrick Tuipulotu also delivered a strong performance in the second row, despite not being the most obvious selection beforehand. His physicality and work rate gave the All Blacks another important platform, and after what happened at Ellis Park, his place in the team suddenly looks much stronger. But while the All Blacks celebrated, the Springboks were left searching for answers. It would be unfair to say that everything was negative for South Africa. There were individual performances that stood out, and Wilco Louw was one of them. Louw started ahead of Thomas du Toit and produced a powerful showing in the scrum. He challenged the All Blacks front row and earned several penalties, giving the Springboks valuable opportunities to build pressure. His battle with Ethan de Groot was particularly encouraging. At times, South Africa appeared capable of using the set piece as a platform for a comeback. But the problem was what happened after those opportunities arrived. The Springboks struggled to convert pressure into enough points. That was the story of the match. They could create moments, but they could not consistently finish them. Jasper Wiese was another player who deserved credit despite the defeat. His carrying was powerful and direct. He repeatedly pushed through contact and helped the Springboks gain valuable meters. When South Africa needed someone to take the ball forward, Wiese was often willing to accept the challenge. But rugby is a team sport, and one powerful ball carrier cannot solve every problem. The Springboks needed greater accuracy around him, particularly in the backline, and too many promising attacks ended without the reward they needed. That frustration became even greater because the famous South African bomb squad failed to have the expected impact. The replacement forwards are normally one of the biggest weapons in the Springboks strategy. Fresh legs are supposed to increase the pressure, change the physical battle, and make life extremely difficult for tiring opponents. At Ellis Park, however, that familiar advantage did not arrive in the way South Africa wanted. Instead, the All Blacks remained composed and continued to find ways to control the contest. That will be one of the biggest areas South Africa must examine before the next test. The defeat also highlighted another important difference between the two teams: execution. At this level, it is rarely enough to simply create opportunities. You have to finish them. The All Blacks did that far more effectively. When moments appeared, they attacked them with confidence. When the Springboks created pressure, they sometimes allowed mistakes to interrupt their momentum. Handling errors, missed chances, and inconsistent attacking execution all combined to make the challenge much harder. The scoreline of 33-16 may look comfortable, but the emotional story was more complicated. There were periods when the Springboks looked capable of fighting their way back into the contest. There were moments when the crowd believed a comeback might be possible. But each time South Africa appeared ready to build momentum, New Zealand found an answer. That ability to stop a comeback is one of the strongest signs of a team playing with confidence. And confidence is exactly what the All Blacks now have. The result also changes the psychological picture of the rivalry. Before the match, both sides carried enormous expectations. The Springboks entered as the team many believed could dominate through physicality and experience. The All Blacks arrived knowing that they had to prove they could stand up to that pressure. After 80 minutes, the balance had shifted. New Zealand now knows that its style can succeed against the Springboks at Ellis Park. That belief can become extremely valuable in the next contest. But the Springboks have something equally important: experience. They have been in difficult situations before. They know how to respond after disappointing performances. They know that one result does not define a rivalry. And they know that when the pressure becomes enormous, they are capable of producing a completely different performance. That is why the next test could be even more fascinating than the first. Will the Springboks change their approach? Will they find a way to restore the impact of their bomb squad? Will their attacking players become more accurate? Will Jasper Wiese continue to provide the physical edge? And perhaps most importantly, can South Africa find a way to reduce the influence of Jordan and Jordie Barrett? Those questions will dominate the build-up. For the All Blacks, the challenge is different. They cannot assume that the second battle will be as comfortable. The Springboks will study every weakness from the first match. They will look for ways to disrupt the All Blacks' attack and prevent players like Jordan and Barrett from controlling the game. The pressure will increase, and so will the expectations. But that is what makes this rivalry special. Every victory creates another challenge. Every defeat creates another opportunity. Every test becomes part of a larger story. Ellis Park has now become the setting where New Zealand made the first major statement. The All Blacks arrived under pressure and left with belief. Jordan reminded the world of his extraordinary talent. Jordie Barrett delivered a performance that strengthened his reputation as one of the most complete players in international rugby. Fabian Holland showed that his return from injury could be a major boost. George Bower answered questions with his performance. And Dave Rennie saw several selection decisions turn into positives. For the Springboks, Wilco, Louw, and Jasper Wiese offered reasons for optimism, but the team will know that individual performances are not enough. The system must improve. The execution must become cleaner. The bomb squad must find its impact again. And the opportunities created must be converted into points. Because when the Springboks and All Blacks meet again, the memory of this 33-16 result will be sitting in the background. New Zealand will want to prove it was not a one-night performance. South Africa will want to prove it was only a temporary setback. That is where the true drama begins. The first battle has been won by the All Blacks, but the rivalry has not been decided. Not even close. Ellis Park has given New Zealand the opening advantage, but it has also given South Africa something powerful: motivation. And when two rugby giants meet again with pride, pressure, and everything still to play for, there is only one certainty. The next chapter will be even bigger. The All Blacks have fired the first major warning. Now the Springboks must decide how they will answer.